Hey everyone, welcome back into a video. So, happy Thanksgiving everyone. So, what is this video about? Well, this is about the new document the CMA put out. It's an official response about the whole Activision deal. And wow, some of the shit that Sony has said here is incredible, and not a good way. They look absolutely pathetic with some of the things that they've said here, because wow, wow. So, without further ado, let's get into it. So, first off, we're going to start at the beginning. Executive summary. It closely follows the CMA's Phase 1 decision, which explained why and how the transaction would harm competition, multi-game services, and cloud gaming. It's based on compelling and extensive evidence, including Microsoft, Sony's, and Activision's internal documents, independent surveys, engagement speed and shared data, multiple views from third parties, and Microsoft's own statements, and thorough analysis of their past. Sony agrees with decision findings. Of course they do. It believes strongly that the transaction will harm competition, industry, participants, innovation, and consumers. In summary, the transaction is a game changer that poses a threat to an industry enjoyed by hundreds of millions. Activision's content in particular, Call of Duty, one of the most successful series of all time, for 20 years has consistently been the largest annualized AAA franchise in the gaming market. It's irreplaceable for platforms, as the decision found is especially important for attracting gamers to the platform, and its importance cannot be captured by market share alone. The transaction will put this content under Microsoft's sole control, giving it an unprecedented constant advantage at a point where the industry is at a critical, and I quote, inflection point in its evolution. Post-transaction, Microsoft will have the ability and incentive to exclude or restrict rivals, including PlayStation and PlayStation Plus, from having access to Call of Duty. The decision identifies 5 recent acquisitions of game studios where, shortly after the acquisition in question, Microsoft changed their business model and withdrew new titles from competing platforms. As the CMA found, Microsoft has a quote-unquote pattern of acquiring studios and making their upcoming games exclusive. Despite the significance of Activision titles, Microsoft have an even stronger incentive to make them exclusive to Xbox and Game Pass post-transaction. In fact, Microsoft does not contest that it intends making Activision content exclusive to Game Pass and denying PlayStation Plus access to that content. Wow. You see what Sony's doing here? Like, are they really that triggered, like, by the fact that COD could go exclusive, when Microsoft said multiple times, as I'll say probably multiple times in this video, they've made abundantly fucking clear that Call of Duty, they want Call of Duty to stay multi-platform. Like, how many more times do they have to say it, man? But anyway, continuing. Sony is confident will confirm the transaction is likely to substantially lessen competition should be prohibited. In the reminder of these observations, Sony addresses the IS3 theories of harm. Theory 1. Under theory of harm is IS in decision explained that Microsoft would have the ability and incentive to withhold or degrade rival consoles' access to Activision content. The IS explains that post-transaction, Microsoft would have significant upstream market power and the incentive to engage in foreclosure. The CMA's thorough review of the evidence revealed that Microsoft has shown itself willing to make losses in the short term in order to build scale and increase in user base. On effects, the decision stresses that it has focused on the impact of the merger on competition, and not just its impact on any specific one, because the importance of Call of Duty, the structure of the hardware market where both Sony and Microsoft compete closely, and the presence of both indirect and direct network effects, the decision found that the material impact on Sony's ability to compete would have a detrimental impact to overall competition in the market and ultimately harm consumers. I'll get to that later. Sony agrees with them, of course they do, in the framework for the assessment set out in the decision. The decision reached its conclusion based on consistent, convincing, and compelling body of evidence, including, again, Microsoft Activision's internal documents, views from third party, revenue and user engagement data from Microsoft, showing Activision's and Microsoft's titles account for 30-40% of minutes played on console in the UK. Economic analysis and financial modeling, and Microsoft's own past business practices. Faced with this evidence, Microsoft achieves 3 points. It argues that Activision content is not particularly important and has promised to make its content available on PlayStation post-transaction. and anti-competitive elements are not possible because PlayStation today is more popular than Xbox. Microsoft arguments lack merit, as shown in the following sections. Really, last I checked, PlayStation is number one, where Xbox is in quote-unquote last place, as the fanboys like to say on Twitter. Really. I gotta get that COD is like one of the biggest franchises of all time. I understand that. Like, it's irrefutable to say that. But, really? So, I get COD makes more money with all Sony's first-party studios combined, and really, keeping them off of PlayStation Plus, like, no shit? Like, no shit. That's literally Sony's, answer to Game Pass, and it's not even close. Like, Game Pass mops the floor with PlayStation Plus. Like, you cannot argue that. It's a fact. Wow. Anyway, continuing. Despite planning to spend $68.7 billion to acquire Activision, Microsoft's first argument is that the CMA overstates the importance of Activision's content. Sony disagrees. The CMA conducted detailed qualitative and quantitative assessment based on evidence from third-party engagement data surveys, awareness, user numbers, gaming revenue, and so on. The evidence unearthed by the CMA unequivocally assessed that Activision content is especially important for attracting gamers to a platform. In response, Microsoft argues that to reference to redacted usage data that COD gamers cannot be considered special or unique. This is incorrect and disproven by the data. What matters is the importance of the content Microsoft would control both post-transaction, comparing to its competitors how this would affect competitive dynamics over time. The reality is that the transaction would give Microsoft control of irreplaceable content that could in turn confer an extraordinary advantage allowed to foreclose rivals. Microsoft would control irreplaceable content that drives user engagement post-transaction. Microsoft would control Activision content that drives times. You're going to see a lot of those blanks there, just letting you know. As much user engagement on PlayStation than all Sony's best performing first-party titles put together. Blank of that user engagement is driven by COD. Call of Duty games are exceptionally important to PlayStation. In 2021, blank million PlayStation users played Call of Duty, accounting for around blank % of the PlayStation user base and spending blank billion on COD and associated game add-ons. More importantly, these users generated estimated annual platform spending of around blank billion on hardware, peripherals, cyber services, games, and other services. This represents % of total spending on such hardware, games, etc. COD is different, and more importantly to gaming platforms than the other games Microsoft mentions. COD is different to the other games that Microsoft mentions, such as Rocket League, NBA 2K, Minecraft, and Grand Theft Auto. COD has the highest number of MAUs among the top 10 gaming franchises in 2020 and 2021. It has a relentless release cycle with multiple studios with thousands of devs working on different versions of COD at any one time, so it can maintain yearly releases. And it is unique among AAA games because of its popularity, loyalty, and the enormous resources Activision commits to making the franchise. Each release takes around 3 to 5 years to develop with budgets of over $300 million. Wow, talk about totally throwing. They literally Sony right there literally just threw all of their first-party games out from under their freaking bus. Like, holy shit. I hate to tell you, fanboys, what we all been telling you. Exclusives are not the sole reason why people buy a console. If you can't handle that, that's too freaking bad. People buy the consoles for the third-party games like, Call of fucking Duty. FIFA and all the other ones. And really, did y'all notice something with that from what I just read? They literally left out freaking Battlefield. One of the there's the usual trio. Like last year, it was Call of Duty, Halo, and Battlefield. I know Battlefield was a disaster and Halo disappointed because of its disappointing live service and all of that. But still, Battlefield is such a huge franchise. They even left out Apex Legends, Rainbow Six Siege. Those are other really popular, first-person shooter franchises that are out there. Not franchises because Apex is only one game, but you gotta get what I'm saying though. Holy hell, man. Oh, I just remembered this. They've literally left out Destiny. Destiny. By the company. Like, they own the company now and IP of Destiny now. Y'all realize that? Damn, they literally just threw Bungie. They essentially threw Bungie out from under the bus after they just acquired them earlier this year. Wow. Because of their obsession with Call of Duty. But anyway, continuing. Microsoft claims that Nintendo's differentiated model demonstrates that PlayStation does not need COD to compete effectively, but this reveals their true strategy. Microsoft wants PlayStation to become like Nintendo so that it would be a less close and less effective competitor to Xbox post-transaction. Microsoft would become the one-stop shop for all the best-selling shooter franchises on console: COD, Halo, Gears, Doom, Overwatch. As the decision explains, and it would then be free from serious competitive pressure. Again, like I just said, they literally left out Battlefield and Apex Legends, among others. Oh, obviously Destiny 2 as well. Like, damn. Really? Are you really that dependent on Call of Duty because you've screwed up so hard in the first-person shooter genre with Killzone Shadowfall? Like, that essentially killed the series, and there hasn't been a new Killzone ever since. But anyway, continuing. In short, Activision's games in particular, COD, are critical to PlayStation. The franchise is firmly entrenched in gamers' psyche. Every installment since COD was the first release back in 2003 has consistently topped the charts. COD has been synonymous with the FPS category as the benchmark against all other FPS games are measured. Through its 20-year existence, no game has managed to rival COD's brand loyalty network. Nothing of comparable. CMA, during its thorough Phase 1 review, suggests this is likely to change. Microsoft's not committed to continue making COD available on PlayStation and PlayStation Plus. Yes they did, but whatever. Microsoft's second argument is that Microsoft has offered Sony a contractual commitment to keep supplying with Call of Duty, including new releases with feature and parity. But no contractual protections can ever provide proper protection against a foreclosure strategy, and this is why the CMA's guidelines emphasize that CMA should not place material weight on contractual protections in a foreclosure case. Besides, Microsoft has badly mischaracterized its offer. Microsoft's proposal has three significant shortcomings. That's a huge little blank right there. A commitment to equal treatment on PlayStation and Xbox is essential to maintain effective competition and share a level play field. Are you fucking kidding? I'll get to that after I finish this part. Multi-game services. Microsoft has not agreed to make COD and other Activision titles available on Sony's PlayStation Plus, much less on terms that would be fair and competitive. On the contrary, they have made clear publicly that they intend to make COD available only on Game Pass and have said if Sony is concerned, it should permit Game Pass on PlayStation consoles because Sony's active multi-game service is critical to its future. Wow. No shit. No shit they want to put COD on Game Pass. Are you kidding me? Having Call of Duty Game Pass on day one, it would be huge. Huge. It would be a huge boom for Game Pass numbers. Like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, no shit they would want to do that. Like, with how huge Call of Duty is every single year, it would be such a no-brainer to put Call of Duty day one on Game Pass. Should the deal go through? Like, really? No shit, Sony, that Microsoft would actually go for that? Are you kidding me? Wow, and Microsoft trying to make Sony look like Nintendo? Shit. Like Nintendo, you know, the company that has a console that has over 100 million consoles sold right now, and each of their first party games usually sell gangbusters. Who the fuck wouldn't want that? Who wouldn't want that? Like, really? Oh my god. Like, who wouldn't want that? Come on now. Wow. Anyway, continuing. Duration. Microsoft has offered to continue making Activision games available on PlayStation only until 2027. Obviously, this was before the recent news that I covered, in my last video. Likewise, in public comments just as October 26th, Microsoft said it has plans to offer COD only as long as it makes sense, a period until 2027 or sometime shorter than Microsoft I can't say that word, I probably botch it. Anyway, determines makes sense to Microsoft's badly inadequate. By the time Sony launches the next generation of its PlayStation console, which likely occur around blank, so sounds like 2028 at least, it would have lost access to COD and other titles, making it extremely vulnerable to consumer switching and subsequent degradation in its competitiveness. Even assuming that Sony has the ability and resources to develop a similarly successful franchise Call of Duty, it would take many years and billions of dollars to create a challenger to Call of Duty, and the example of EA's Battlefield shows how that even efforts would more likely. I'll get to that after this. Anyway, more generally, Microsoft's past conduct shows that its public utterances should be treated with extreme skepticism. Again, I botched that, but anyway, the decision identifies 5 separate transactions: ZeniMax, Obsidian, Exile, Ninja Theory Compulsion, where Microsoft acquired studios and made their games exclusive. This conduct occurred despite their assurance that the public regulators that it would and would not make ZeniMax content exclusive. Microsoft CEO Phil Spencer publicly explained the rationale for Microsoft's bait and switch. Phil's like what it says right here, this is about delivering great exclusive games for Xbox customers that ship at platforms where Game Pass exists. That's our goal. That's why we're doing this. It's the real of this partnership that we're building. Phil's comments about Microsoft's exclusive strategy or Bethesda content are powerful evidence that Microsoft has the same playbook in mind. Actually, that's not true. In fact, the decision finds that Microsoft pursued exclusivity strategy with content that is far less valuable than Activision's. The decision explains that this means Microsoft would have an even stronger incentive to make its content exclusive post-transaction. This is a compelling point that Microsoft does not address. In response to the CMA's analysis of its past conduct, Microsoft points to a single example from almost a decade ago of an acquired game that did not make exclusive, Minecraft, that Microsoft is a completely different proposition to. Oh, wow. Again, literally, Sony literally threw Bungie under the fucking bus, who created one of the most popular first-person shooters with the original Xbox and Halo. Wow. So you mean to tell me with Bungie itself, you cannot come up with a competitor that could go toe-to-toe with Call of Duty with the experience that Bungie has? I mean, look how huge Destiny is still. Like, sure, it's like struggled in the beginning, but to their credit, they turned it around, and Destiny's one of the biggest IP in terms of, free-to-play, games out there. Like, it is huge across all platforms. So, no, Sony, I guarantee. Hell, bring back Killzone, SOCOM. Come on. Resistance, that's another one. Come on. Oh my god. Let's keep going. The basis of this theory of harm is as follows. Activision's content is equally important to multi-game sub-services as it is to consoles. While Activision's content is not available today on sub-services, as demand grows, Activision would likely make that content available on multiple sub-services absent the transaction. Post-transaction, however, the decision finds that Microsoft would have the ability and the incentive to make their content exclusive to Game Pass and not release on other sub-services. Microsoft does not contest these findings in this response. On the contrary, Microsoft has publicly made it clear one of its main rationales for the transaction is to differentiate Game Pass from rival services by making Activision's content available on it. Including PlayStation Plus, the anti-competitive effect of this strategy would be profound. Game Pass already holds a strong position in sub-services with its competitors significantly smaller, lacking the popular range of content Game Pass would own. Multiple sub-services are a scam market. I don't know what that means, exhibiting both direct and indirect network effects. Combining Game Pass, the leading incumbent, with Activision's important gaming catalog could, in the decision's words, substantially reduce competition, raise barriers to entry, reduce the number of competitors to only one or few providers, significantly increase Microsoft's market power. The transaction would thereby deprive consumers of strong competition and multi-game sub-services that would have been played out opposite Microsoft's foreclosure strategy. Sony agrees with the findings, of course they do, which are basically a cogent and compelling body of evidence that rests on the principles set out in the CMA's guidelines and recent case law that particularly care is needed to protect next-gen competition. So notes the following. Game Pass leads PlayStation Plus significantly. Microsoft already has a substantial lead in services. Game Pass 29 million. Oh, well that's newsworthy. Anyway, because the Microsoft hasn't said that yet, but whatever. Game Pass has 29 million sub-services to Game Pass and console Game Pass Ultimate, and it's expected to grow up substantially. The multi-game service of tiers PlayStation Plus considerably lag with fewer than blank the number of subscribers. SIE's documents attest to the danger of COD becoming exclusive to Game Pass. Sony's couplerism documents corroborate the decision and also of the danger of Activision content becoming exclusive Game Pass. A February 2022 states that. Obviously, they censored out that last part, but really, Sony? Really, you're the same goddamn company who refuses to put their first-party games in PlayStation Plus day one because they want that $70 so bad, and you're getting all pissy because Microsoft might do it with Call of Duty because you're too much of a chicken shit to do it because you're obsessed with that $70 market share, which is, traditional, because you want to stick to it so freaking bad because you refuse to adapt to it for now, but they'll obviously change because they love to copy their competitors. But really? Oh my god. Man, wow. Continuing. Independent service confirmed the profound effect of COD being included on Game Pass. An independent YouGov survey from January found that including COD on Game Pass would have profound impact on gamers' preferences for multi-server service. 46% of Game Pass in the US indicated if COD were available, they would consider subscribing to Game Pass. I mean, who wouldn't? Who loves Call of Duty? I mean, why wouldn't they? Devs would also be harmed by unequal access to Call of Duty. Oh my god, this narrative. But whatever. Excluded access to Call of Duty on PlayStation Plus would also negatively impact independent game developers. Indie devs would likely receive worse terms for their content from Microsoft once Microsoft had become the dominant multi-game sub-service. Reduced returns could in turn diminish independent devs' ability, incentivize to invest in high-quality new games, causing games to become lower quality, less immersive, and driven by disruptive in-app purchases. This in turn would cause consumers yet further. In response to CMA's evidence, Microsoft answered three main arguments, none as persuasive. Yeah, that's the word. First, Microsoft argues that multi-game services are not a market but a means of payment. Microsoft paragraph 4.5 dismisses the point. Multi-game services are more than a mere means of payment. They are an alternative to buy to play and allows consumers to access a broad library of video game content through a different payment model. They can also influence consumers' choice of hardware and cloud gaming service, where the multi-game services in question is compatible with only certain hardware or other services, as the case with Game Pass in each of Xbox and Azure. Accordingly, there's competitive interaction between buy-to-play and multi-game subscription services, and a competitive relationship between the consumer's decision to subscribe to a given multi-game service and his or her choice of console, mobile device, PC, and/or cloud gaming service. Both relationships and side effects merit review. Sony therefore confers it appropriate with CMA to examine the effect of transaction multi-game services separately from assessment of transaction effect on consoles and cloud gaming. Really, Sony? The company who literally had a head fucking start on cloud was PS Now. And they had a if they really wanted to, they could have actually tried to negate some of the advantage Microsoft would get by literally putting their first party games in PS Plus, like I said earlier. But they're too much of a chicken shit to actually do it. Because, we don't have the funds to. I guarantee you, if they really wanted to, they really could. It's just the fact they don't want to. Because they're obsessed with that $70 price tag. Because it's the traditional model. Like, come on now. Unreal. Unfucking real. Anyway, continuing. Second, Microsoft claims that therefore not facts anywhere to support the assertion that Activision's content strategy, under which no service receives preferential treatment, would change. Microsoft may claim there are no facts, but CMA finds that its internal documents tell a different story. The decision cites multiple documents, highlight incentives and foreclosure of competitors. The CMA's characterization of these documents suggests they are consistent with the economy incentives analysis undertaken by Cornerstone Research and RBB Economics. Microsoft's argument that Activision content is not featured today in multi-game services is misconceived. Today, no multi-game services had advantage of being able to offer Activision replaceable content because Activision is not made available in any of them. While that may change in the future as more grow, it would change based on competition on the merits rather than an anti-competitive acquisition. Would change equal basis with Activision's content being available on parity on all services, consistent with its current multi-platform approach for buy-to-play content. The transaction would also prevent Activision from developing a console-agnostic multi-game sub-service as certain other developers have done, thereby removing a potential competitive constraint. If there was any doubt as to Microsoft's intentions, Microsoft made it clear that it plans to differentiate Game Pass from rival services by not making it available on the same manner or at the same time on all at once. Gaming gave exclusive access to COD and other Activision games, with total demand for multi-game services irreparably in Microsoft's favor. For this alone, the transactions should be challenged. Third, Microsoft argues that demand for sub-services would not tip towards Game Pass. Microsoft would also make Game Pass available on PlayStation, but while the availability of the leading provider now endowed with exclusive irreplaceable content and protected by direct and indirect network effects would make it harder, not easier, for rival multi-game sub-services to compete. Microsoft stands that Game Pass availability on PlayStation would be I don't know how to say that, for the harm from this transaction rings particularly hollow given that Microsoft does not permit PlayStation Plus to be available on Xbox. I mean, why wouldn't they when they have literal Game Pass, which is way far superior to what Sony's offering is? Especially the fact you can get every single first-party game that Microsoft puts out. Like Halo Infinite, for example, Starfield, Redfall, Avowed. You get what I'm saying, though? And Sony doesn't do that with theirs. Yep, but I think they will change their tune in the future, and that'll be another a bullshit lie by Jim Ryan that's exposed once again. So, like all the other ones that he's spewed. But you get what I'm saying, though? Like, so it's pretty clear that Sony's main fear is Call of Duty on Game Pass. Like, they know how huge that would be. They know it, and that's why they're scared of it. Anyway, continuing. Under Theory of Harm 3, foreclosure of cloud gaming service providers throughout leveraging Microsoft's ecosystem. Under TOH3, the decision found that Microsoft would leverage its broad multi-product ecosystem, including its leading platform Azure, its leading gaming system, Xbox, and dominant POS, together with Activision's gaming content, to strengthen network effects, raise barriers to entry, and hence foreclose rivals in cloud gaming. The decision further found that Microsoft would have the ability to incentive to engage in vital foreclosure strategies, including withholding Activision's content, denying or degrading rival cloud gaming providers to Azure, and denying or degrading rivals access to Windows. Microsoft has structural advantages in cloud gaming services because of its deep and broad advantages. Microsoft's success with Azure and Windows, which the majority of PC games are played, will give it opportunities to undercut Sony on cloud gaming for console PC. Microsoft has already publicly trumpeted its advantages in cloud gaming. As Phil Spencer remarked, when you talk about Nintendo and Sony, we have a lot of time and respect for them, but we see Amazon and Google as the main competitors. I knew that was going to come back to bite them in the butt when Phil said that. That's not to disrespect Nintendo and Sony, but the traditional gaming companies are somewhat out of position. Since then, Google has announced that it's closed its Google Stadia, including because of absence of critical content, because they gave up too early on making exclusives for it. Amazon's, for its part, has struggled to gain traction. The effects of a Microsoft foreclosure strategy in cloud gaming would harm consumers and gaming publishers. Cloud gaming is at an early stage of development, and strengthening network effects and raising barriers to entry could affect all current and potential rivals. This would deny consumers the benefit of competition between platforms, or at the very least, a longer period of competition between platforms vying to be by the winning platform in these markets. For gaming publishers, the CMA explained that if Microsoft were to become a gatekeeper between publishers and gamers, that would ultimately give Microsoft the ability to control access to gamers, charging high fees for game distribution and manipulate game rankings. Sony agrees to this through analysis of the decision and a framework for assessment set up by IIS. If consummated, the transaction would give Microsoft a unique position in the industry as the only company with full control over such a large library. Really? Again, Sony, you had a head start. Years head start before Microsoft did with cloud gaming, and you did nothing with it. You sat on your ass and did fucking nothing with it. And now you want to sit here and complain because your main competitor is doing it? Very well. I might add, it was because xCloud, or however Microsoft calls it nowadays, because I don't care about cloud gaming, like, at all. Like, really, Sony, you now want to bitch about it because you didn't do shit with it for years on end? Just shut the hell up. God damn, you are so freaking pathetic, man. Holy shit. Anyway, continuing. Of popular games and levers to determine how competition plays out in the space thanks to OS and Azure platform as Sony's contemporaries documents explain blank. Likewise, Phil has publicly explained that content, community, and cloud are the future of gaming. Post-transaction, Microsoft have unique strengths in all three. In response analysis, Microsoft raised 4 points, none of it is sound. First, argues that the CMA's theory of harm is novel and without precedent. There's nothing novel about a leveraging theory of harm, whereby a digital platform uses existing advantages in one area to harm competition in another one. Microsoft's claims of novelty are particularly misplaced given that Microsoft is presently under investigation for leveraging practices involving Azure and Windows. They are? I didn't know that. But anyway, Microsoft's president Brad Sams has recognized the legitimacy of certain of these concerns and pledged to address them. In the same vein, Microsoft documents unearthed by the CMA identify an anti-competitive strategy to leverage Activision's content and advantage Microsoft cloud gaming. Second, they argue that consumer adoption of cloud gaming remains low. That's besides the point. Nasdaq competition is just as worthy of protection as competition on servers that already enjoy substantial usage, as Microsoft well knows. Indeed, the CMA has announced it is opening a market investigation in cloud gaming services precisely because cloud gaming is a quote-unquote developing innovation and competition within space should be protected. Third, Microsoft argues that the counterfactual Activision content would not be available on cloud services. This is misconceived, as with multi-sub services, Activision content in this counterfactual might become available to services in the future on equal terms under the transaction. However, Microsoft has the ability incentive to keep that content exclusively to themselves. And why the hell would they? Like, that's kind of their whole point, is to make their services and their platform better, stronger, gain more market share. Where it's real. Now, in conclusion, fourth, Microsoft argues that it does not have a market-leading position in gaming to protect. But this theory of harm is about Microsoft using its leading position in PC OS, cloud gaming, and gaming content via the acquired content to foreclose competition in cloud. There is no requirement in such a leveraging theory for there to be market power in the foreclosed product. Microsoft well knows. Microsoft has publicly explained the link between content, community, and cloud. Microsoft already has community via Xbox, Windows, and LinkedIn in the cloud by Azure. And through a transaction, it would add Activision's vast content to existing games, giving it everything it would need to tip demand in its favor and foreclose actual or potential. Now for the conclusion. The transaction threatens the gaming ecosystem at a critical moment. It would take a replaceable gaming series out of independent hands and combine it with Microsoft's highly successful gaming system, leading subservice Game Pass, dominant PC OS, and leading cloud platform. The only way to preserve robust competition and protect consumers and independent developers is to ensure that Activision remains independently owned and controlled. Right. So Sony can continue to money hat DLC for it, right? And keep it away from all other competitors, giving them an unfair advantage. There's even more in there I could have read, but this video is already half an hour long. So in conclusion to this video, Sony should expose themselves as hypocrites yet again. And I saw something about Microsoft saying that essentially Sony wouldn't have any first-person shooters. Like, come on, they got fucking Bungie. As I pointed out before, they literally just threw them out from under the freaking bus after just acquiring them only a few months ago. And they now own Destiny, one of the most popular live service games ever. One of them. But still, though, like, holy shit. Like, I cannot believe this level of hypocrisy from Sony, man. They are freaking desperate for this to fail, man. Like I said in my last video, they just want the deal to fail. Like, they don't want it to go through at all. Like, they are terrified of Game Pass. Like, they are freaking terrified, man. And it freaking shows. But, wow. Like, the level of lies. Oh, here's something else that I didn't read, but it's out there. Where Sony's afraid that after this acquisition, they're fearing that Microsoft will be more like them. What? In, like, raising prices of their fucking games to $70 2 years ago. And not to mention just a few months ago, they raised the price of their own goddamn console in every territory outside of the United States. Gee, I wonder why. Because that's where Microsoft's the strongest. Wow. Holy shit. The level of hypocrisy from Sony, man. Like, at this point, I want this deal to go through so bad. Like, I'm rooting for Microsoft to get this deal to go through because they fucking deserve it, man. At this point. Especially after they had literally show, you know, EU and the FTC how freaking gaming works. Because I didn't cover this in my last video, but they literally had to show the FTC and in London how gaming consoles fucking work. They literally had to, you know, take all 3 consoles with them to show how how console gaming even works. Like, wow, being so freaking out of touch. Like, holy shit. It kind of proves that the CMA isn't actually doing their research, like, at least now, because, like, essentially this whole document was just parodying Sony's, you know, points, word to fucking word. Like, wow, holy hell. Like I said before, I hope this deal goes through, just because I know it would piss Sony off, and I kind of hope Microsoft, and if this deal fails, I kind of hope that Microsoft kind of uses Sony's own, you know, moves against them with the whole money hiding shit. And I hate money hiding, but I just kind of want to see Sony get what's coming to them, because they've been doing so much anti-consumer shit for so many years. Especially with locking, you know, third-party IP off of Xbox and PC and Nintendo platforms. And like I said before, like, why wouldn't you want to end up like Nintendo, where you have 100 million plus console user base, where every exclusive that Nintendo makes sells like freaking hotcakes. I mean, the new Pokemon games have already sold over 10 million copies already, and those games just came out last weekend. With the whole performance disaster that game is, you know, from a technical aspect, it's still making gangbusters. So, like, wow. I mean, shit. If I was like a game console maker, shit, I would love to have first party sales be on the level that Nintendo's do. Shit. Anyone would. Like, come on now. But, wow, man. But to sum this video up, yeah, Sony is being utterly pathetic with how they're acting towards the whole Activision deal, and no one else is doing it. Phil even said that Nintendo hasn't complained about it. Sony's the only one who is. Just, wow. Like I said before, to end this video off, I hope this deal goes through. I just hope the decision is done sooner or later, because I'm getting tired of hearing about this shit, man. There's even more I could cover, but, you know, in this video, but it's already nearly 40 minutes long, so. But anyway, I think that's all I gotta say at this point. What do you guys think of this realization? I might cover the whole, there's like a rumor going around, but probably not, because the title of the article is like clickbait or whatever, but yeah. But yeah, Sony's being utterly pathetic, and their hypocrisy is showing hardcore, even now more than ever. And it's really pathetic. It really is. So, what do you guys think? Let me know down in the comment section below, and if you like this video, hit that like button, and consider hitting that sub button so do not miss any more videos, and I hope you all have a great Thanksgiving. Have a great one.